What's up, guys? Twice here with another deck profile. This one is for Gear Chronicle, a deck that I've never played before. But I bought this off my friend at Regionals, and I was like, I really like the way it plays. And I know that it's kind of obsolete now that the new stuff is coming out in May, but it's fun, and I thought you guys would be interested in it. So again, fair warning though, this was my friend's deck, so if the build is kind of weird or you disagree with it at all, well, yeah. Anyway, so Chrono Dran Z is our starter. Forerunner, pretty good. So when your grade 2 or greater ZTB, Zodiac Time Beast, rides, you bind him, check top 5, get a grade 3 or 1, put into your hand, and shuffle. And then if he's in the bind zone, you can discard a card and then add him to your hand as like a 5k booster or 10k shield. So he's pretty good, honestly, for getting you stride fodder, I've noticed, because you can either get your grade 1 substitute or just another grade 3, or if you're grade stuck, he's pretty good for that too. Just very consistent starter. Going into the triggers, so I'll tell you right off the bat that I run 8 crit, 4 stand, 4 heal. So you run 4 Pulsar Thruster Bison, put into the soul, give +3, and then 4 Pulsar Bombard Hog, so countercharge, that's pretty good too. What I like about this one is that it binds, and what I like about this one, the Bison, is that he goes into the soul. So both of them can be pretty useful in building up whatever area you need to build up. And then 4 of the Pulsar Hypnosis Sheep. This is a cool stand because it stands things. So when a unit's placed on rearguard, or when he's placed on rearguard from hand, that's important. He gets the ability of put him into the soul, choose another one of your rearguards, and put it to the bottom of your deck. At the end of the battle that a unit, any unit, attacked a vanguard, you may pay the cost, and if you do, you can stand a ZTB rearguard. So that's pretty good. There's a couple good plays you can make with this thing. Despite how weak he is, he's pretty useful. And then, of course, we have our 4 Chronomedical Hamster for, you need these kinds of heal triggers. What's cool about this deck is that because these things bind, it can build up your bind zone, so that makes it just like slightly more useful for this deck. And then for the grade 1 lineup, we have 2 of the Pulsar Tamer Hegald. Hegald's good because GB1, when you place him, you can soul charge. It's pretty nice. He's a 7k booster. And if you have a grade 4 Vanguard, he gets the ability of Soul Blast 1 and then put him on the bottom of your deck. And then you choose a card from your drop zone, put it to the bottom of the deck, and you can countercharge. So you can get a trigger back to your deck with him, and you can countercharge. That's pretty nice. It's actually pretty easy to manipulate what's in your deck if you're running into the really late game with this deck in general, and he kind of helps that too. So we got our 2 Revolver Dracokid. Obviously this thing is really just for stride fodder, and because of Chronojet Dragon Z, you don't really need to use this card a lot for stride fodder, but it helps to have a couple of them. Then we have our 2 Mariblock Dragon. So in the deck in the drop zone, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater, he gets +2 grades. So if you're looking for a grade 3, then he can substitute for that. And when he boosts GB1, then for every ZTB unit you have other than him, he gets +2, and then you bind him. So good power card. You can call him back with one of the other grade 2s, and he can just make for some powerful columns. Then we have our 4 Pulsar Transit Dragon. So at the end of the turn that he boosts, put him into the soul and draw a card. 7k booster is just a solid card, and he can build up soul. And then we have our 4 Perfect Guards. And what I like about this one is that you can choose a ZTB from your hand and discard it. When it's placed on the Guardian Circle, pay the cost, and then any unit that is being attacked cannot hit. It's not just for the Vanguard. Then in the drop zone, this is a GB2, so it's a little bit later. You can choose one of her and a ZTB trigger unit and then bind them face up. So it kind of gets rid of a trigger from your drop zone, but it's fine because you can add her back to your hand. And I mean, that's obviously good for like multiple reasons. But yeah, so the grade 1 lineup is pretty cool. Then we have the grade 2s. We have our 2 Pulsar Spearhead Unicorn. So what I like about this card is that it's one of those things where it's an 11k attacker on its own at GB1, and its ability is Counterblast 1. When it attacks a Vanguard, look at the same number of cards from the top of your deck as you have ZTB units. You call one ZTB with a different card name from him, so you can't just like keep calling different cards. And then you call it, and you put the rest to the bottom of your deck. So it's nice for just getting you a unit for a counterblast, and because it gives you a couple options, it can be pretty useful. Then we have 3 of Manish. So she's basically the same thing as the grade 1 of when she attacks. She gets +2 for every other face-up ZTB. Makes for some good columns, and then you bind her. And then she has resist if you have a ZTB Vanguard, which is super nice for a grade 2, especially in this meta. And then we have Cruising Dragon. Same thing with Spearhead Unicorn. Is an 11k attacker, counterblast 1. When he attacks, you can check the top 3 cards of your deck, get 1 ZTP from among them, and then put in your hand, and the rest go to the bottom of your deck. So he's for hand size, and then Spearhead Unicorn is for getting you an extra unit on the field. Both of them are useful in their own ways. I recommend always having these 2 in your deck, and you can kind of mess with the numbers a little bit, but they're pretty cool. And then we have 4 Metal Party Dragon. So he's nice because he is a 10k. He can't attack unless you have a card bound, but because you have Chrono Dran, that's pretty easy. So Metal Party, counterblast 1. At the end of the turn, and you bind him. At the end of the turn that he is boosted, you call a grade 3 and grade 1 ZTB from your bind zone. So that gives you a whole new column. You can make some cool plays with this card, and he's only a counterblast, so it's not too bad. Sometimes the counterblasts can be a little much with the grade 2s, but this deck is good at resource management, so it's not really a problem. Alright, now going into the grade 3s. Of course, we have ya boy, Chronojet Dragon Z. He's great because his first ability is that if you're paying for the cost of stride, you can just bind a grade 3 ZTB from your drop zone. Second ability is that you Soul Blast when your G unit strides. You put one of your opponent's rear guards to the bottom of their deck, and then you call a ZTB from your deck with +1 grade. So that's where the Block Dragon comes in, because he counts as a grade 3. So you can get a booster in that case. There's just a lot you can do with this card. Because it is a Soul Blast, sometimes it's a little much to manage because sometimes you don't have Soul to use it. But as long as you manage it, then he can be useful for like just getting you fields that you need. I run 1 Chronojet Dragon G, just kind of as a backup. I've never really used him. For every 2 face-up cards in your G zone, he gets +5k, and all of your ZTB rearguards get +1k. So that's pretty good. He can make for some pretty solid columns. And then he has the Time Leap. When your G unit strides, or your Gear Dragon or ZTB G unit strides, you can call up to 1 card from your hand, call it to the rear guard, and then choose one of your rear guards, and then Time Leap it. So you bind it, you call a +1 grade from your deck, and you shuffle your deck. At the end of the turn, it goes to the bottom of the deck, and then you recall that rear guard. So a lot of trading in and out of the bind zone. But again, I never use them. And then I run 2 Pulsar Replenish Coatl. I think that's how you say that. There's a Bowl card that my friend told me about that you can run instead of this, but this one's okay. When he's placed on rear guard from the deck, if you have a ZTB Vanguard, he gets +3, and then if you don't have any cards face up, you can countercharge. So he's pretty useful as a grade 3, but again, you're almost always going to be going into Chronojet Dragon Z. Now going into the extra deck, if I can ever pick it up. For our G Guardians, we have 1 Time Maiden of Eternity Uluru, counterblast 1, and choose a G Guardian specifically and turn it face up. When she's placed on the Guardian Circle, she gets +5k for each of your G units. So she's better used later in the game, but it is nice because for just 1 counterblast, you can get some pretty good shield numbers. Then we have 2 Uluru, Retroactive Time Maiden. So when she's placed, you choose a normal unit and a trigger unit, put them on the bottom of your deck from your drop zone, and if 2 cards are put, she gets +5 shield. So she's a 20k shield, basically. This is the card that you probably want to use first because it's a pretty easy cost. But this is the ideal G Guardian. So Soul Blast 1, when she's placed, if the number of cards in your bind zone is 1 or more, she gets +5, and then if it's 5 or more, she gets +15. So she can be a 35k shield for a Soul Blast, which is pretty good. And she's a ZTB, so you can use her for Heritage's cost. So that's the Guardians, and then we have 2 of the Avenir Phoenix. I like this card a lot for the first stride. Counterblast 1, you turn him face up. When he attacks, you reveal up to 5 cards from your deck. Call up to 2 ZTB from among them to the separate rear guard for every G card you have face up in your G zone. So if you only have 1 face up, then you're only going to get 1. But if you have 2 or more, you're going to get 2, which is pretty good. And then his GB3 is all of your ZTB rear guards get plus 2k, which is pretty nice. He's good for early or late stride. Just a very solid card. Then 2, Split Pegasus. Counterblast 1, choose face down card from your G zone and turn it up. If you have a ZTB Heart card, choose a grade 1 or greater rear guard, return it to the deck, search for up to 2 ZTB with -1 grade from that card, and then call them to separate rear guards and you shuffle your deck. And then in the G zone, he has the ability of during your turn, if this card is face up, all of your ZTB units in the front row get plus 1k. So useful for getting you field, and when he's in the G zone, he can kind of help you build some better columns. So depends on how you want to use Split Pegasus, but he's pretty useful. And then Metapulsar Altered Dragon. So choose a face down card from your G zone and turn it face up. Look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, search for up to 2 cards from among them, and then you bind them, and you shuffle your deck, and for each card in your bind zone, he gets plus 2k until the end of the turn. If the number of cards in your bind zone is 5 or more, then you can countercharge. This card can come in handy in some very unusual situations. Because he can build up a strong center line, sometimes he is the ideal first stride, and he can build up your bind zone. And then what is probably my favorite card in the deck, and that's Chrono Dragon Gearnext. This is your restander. GB2, Soul Blast 1, and turn him face up from your G zone. He gets the ability of once per turn, at the end of the battle that he attacked, if your heart card is a Gear Dragon, reveal 3 ZTB from either your rear guard or your hand, so it depends on how you want to do it, and then you put them at the bottom of your deck, and then if 3 cards are put, he restands and he gets drive -2. However, his GB4 is that if it's his second battle, he gets plus 10k and a drive check. So you're really only losing 1 drive. This card's pretty threatening, especially since like it's not hard to build up the center line with good triggers, and you have stand triggers and stuff. So he can be a good playmaker, and he's pretty threatening by himself. And then I have, of course, Chronovisor Heritage. This card is ridiculous, and I love it. So choose 4 of your ZTB from your G zone, and then turn them face down, so you're going to be able to use them again, but your GB is going to go down to like basically 1. When this unit is put into the G zone at the end of the turn, you may pay the cost, and if you do, you get an extra turn. So you draw again, you skip the ride phase, and then you stride him, and then you go for another turn. So this card is like universally hated because he skips your turn, but he's amazing because he can kind of give you that comeback that you need, because you get like 6 drive checks, and you can get a couple more cards in hand. So that's really what Heritage is for, and depending on how you guard, you can use him early or late. So yeah, he's awesome. And then the one card I'm proxying, because he's expensive, is Dust. Dust is your ultimate stride. Counterblast 2, when you do stride him, your opponent's rear guards, all of their units, get only 1 power. They lose their abilities. Their grade is reduced to 1. And if your opponent is at 4 or less damage, you deal them a damage. So he's good for making like a good final push, because he puts a ton of pressure on your opponent. He's basically like he's like the Zeroth Dragon version of a deleter, and that's what's awesome about him. Anyway, so that's the deck. I love it. I think it's fun, and it's definitely different than a lot of stuff that I've played. So if you like it, then please like, comment, and subscribe. Anyway, we'll see you next time.